Breaking, stop what you're doing, because the courtroom just got flipped upside down. A shocking twist in Lil Durk's federal case has fans, bloggers, and even industry insiders gasping for air. Imagine this: the very people who were supposed to ride for him, the same blood ties that should have kept him safe, are now being whispered about in sealed filings as possible cooperators. Yes, you heard that right. Family betrayal. And if that wasn't enough to send shockwaves through the culture, prosecutors are waving around what they claim is evidence of a green light. Murder plot allegedly orchestrated at the highest levels of OTF. The details are messy, dark, and explosive. Private group chats, cryptic emojis, leaked audio clips, and courtroom murmurs about sealed witness lists. This isn't just rap beef anymore. This is survival. Fans are already calling it the biggest betrayal since hip-hop started, while critics say this is exactly what happens when the streets collide with superstardom. But the real question is, who's flipping, who's lying, and who's next? Tonight, we're diving into the story the labels don't want you to hear: the betrayal, the blood ties, and the alleged murder plot that's got the whole industry frozen. Buckle up, because this bombshell is about to blow wide open. The courtroom was supposed to be just another procedural day: motions, objections, scheduling. But when the whispers started, everyone knew something was different. Lil Durk sat stone-faced, dressed clean, eyes scanning the room like a man who'd seen too much and trusted too few. Behind him, rows of supporters filled the benches: family members, friends, and OTF affiliates. Some wore defiant expressions, others looked worried. But no one expected what was about to unfold. According to multiple court observers and leaked insider chatter, prosecutors hinted at introducing testimony from a cooperating witness. At first, people assumed it was one of the lower-level guys, maybe a hanger-on or a distant associate. But as the documents started circulating partially redacted, stamped, sealed, one detail had everyone's stomachs drop. The initials matched someone close. Too close. Family. The whispers got louder. One journalist present described the energy shift like a live grenade being rolled into the room. Even the defense table stiffened. Durk, who'd been whispering calmly to one of his attorneys, reportedly froze for a split second when the name was hinted at. He didn't turn his head, didn't show emotion, but everyone saw the tension. The betrayal wasn't coming from the streets. It was coming from inside the bloodline. What made this even wilder was the timing. Just days before, prosecutors filed a supplemental brief outlining their plan to introduce what they called communications indicating authorization of retaliatory violence. In plain English, they claim to have evidence that Lil Durk allegedly gave a green light to target certain members of O Block who weren't sliding for King Von. If true, this wasn't just another gang conspiracy charge, it was a betrayal turned inside out. Members of the same network, now being accused of plotting against each other. One piece of evidence prosecutors highlighted came from an April 2023 group chat. Present in the chat: Durk, Deandra Wilson, DD, Antonio Boone Mo Jones, and at least one cooperating witness, labeled PW1 in the filings. According to the government, Durk expressed frustration that O Block wasn't retaliating properly for Von's death. The message was short, but heavy: "I'm going to pipe it up." Within minutes, Boone Mo allegedly responded with "blood, it's green," followed by a car and green light emoji. In street shorthand, that meant it's a go. Plans were set in motion. Prosecutors claim PW1 will testify that Durk provided funds for a vehicle intended to be used in a retaliatory hit against unnamed O Block members. The plan was allegedly abandoned only because police presence in the area was too heavy. But here's where it gets twisted. DD, who was in the group chat, didn't respond. His lawyer has since filed a motion to sever his trial from Durk's, arguing that the evidence overwhelmingly concerns Durk and would prejudice a jury against DD. On paper, that's a legal maneuver. But inside the courtroom and across social media, it looks like something else entirely. Fans are already calling it a betrayal. He's throwing Durk under the bus to save himself. One post on Reddit's drill community read. Another viral tweet said it bluntly: "If your own blood separates their case." That's code for "I ain't going down with you." Prosecutors seized on the division. They emphasized that DD's motion essentially distanced himself from the green light allegations, saying they were solely attributable to Mr. Banks, Durk's legal name. The courtroom buzzed with speculation. Was DD cooperating behind the scenes? Or was this just clever lawyering? Either way, the optics were devastating. Then came the kicker. Sealed portions of the filings reportedly mention a family member being identified as a source of corroborating testimony. No name was released publicly, but according to two courtroom attendees, Durk's reaction told the story. He leaned back slowly, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the prosecution table like he was memorizing faces. Outside the courthouse, the streets lit up. Bloggers, podcasters, and fan pages dissected every word of the filings. Green light emoji became a trending phrase on X within hours. Memes flooded timelines, screenshots of traffic lights, Durk's lyrics, and side-by-side images of OTF members. It was messy. For years, OTF presented a united front. Even through losses, arrests, and federal heat, the narrative was brotherhood, loyalty. "We don't fold," Durk said in countless interviews. But this looked like a crack in the foundation. And cracks in this world don't stay small. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered about mounting tensions inside OTF. Some younger members allegedly felt they were being used as pawns, taking the risks while the top moved like untouchables. Others felt the older heads were out of touch. These whispers had been around for a while, but no one expected the feds to weaponize them. Now, every group chat, every lyric, every emoji was being twisted into evidence. One former associate, speaking under anonymity to a gossip blog, claimed it was bound to happen. Too many egos. Too many secrets. When they say family, they don't always mean blood. And when they say betrayal, sometimes it is blood. Meanwhile, Durk's legal team scrambled to contain the damage. They filed motions arguing that lyrics shouldn't be admissible, that emojis are being taken out of context, that the government is using cultural shorthand to build a narrative rather than actual proof. But the prosecution wasn't backing down. They insisted this wasn't just lyrics. It was operational language. To make matters worse, prosecutors allegedly tied these chats and directives to older incidents, including the attempted shooting of Rondo in Georgia in 2021. They claim this was part of a larger retaliatory campaign, Slag for Von, that Durk both fueled and financed. They have surveillance footage, witness statements, and digital forensics. For the first time, even die-hard fans started to waver. "I love Durk, but this ain't looking good," one fan posted under a live trial update. Green light emojis? Group chats? Family flipping? Man? The tension reached a breaking point during one hearing, when the prosecution alluded to cooperator testimony that corroborates digital evidence. That phrase alone sent shockwaves through the benches. Cooperator testimony is federal language for one thing. Someone close is talking, and that's when everything in the courtroom seemed to stop. According to reports, the judge ordered certain portions of the hearing closed to the public. When the courtroom reopened, faces were pale, whispers were frantic, and Durk's camp left quickly through a side exit. People started connecting the dots. The timing of the severance motion, the cryptic family reference, the cooperator testimony. It painted a picture that no one expected to see. Lil Durk, the face of OTF, allegedly staring down betrayal from within his own bloodline, while prosecutors build a murder plot narrative around group chats and emojis, asterisk. And while this played out in the legal arena, the cultural fallout was immediate. Blogs blasted out headlines about family betrayal in OTF. Podcasters speculated on who flipped. Comment sections became battlegrounds between Free Durk loyalists and those calling him finished. For Durk, who's built his image around loyalty and street honor, this is a nightmare scenario. If the feds have someone inside the family talking, and if that testimony lines up with digital evidence, the defense is looking at an uphill battle, but insiders insist this is just the beginning. According to sources, more evidence, some of it explosive, has yet to be unsealed. And as pressure mounts, the risk of more people flipping only increases. The courtroom bombshell was just the spark. The firestorm is still coming. As the courtroom drama escalated, the ripple effects outside the courthouse began to intensify. Social media was on fire. Bloggers were live streaming outside the courthouse like it was the Grammys, and rival crews started to quietly take notice. Everyone could sense that Lil Durk's once impenetrable circle was fracturing, and the feds were exploiting every single crack. Inside, prosecutors doubled down. They began laying out a timeline connecting Durk's alleged green light message to specific retaliatory attempts and conspiracies. They pointed to April 2023, the group chat, and then to surveillance footage showing a suspicious vehicle circling O Block just days after those texts were sent. The vehicle, prosecutors claimed, was purchased with cash allegedly traced back to Durk's camp. The most chilling moment came when the prosecution introduced excerpts from audio messages they said were retrieved from Boon Mo's phone. These weren't leaked to the public yet, but people in the courtroom described them as command-like and strategic. According to filings, one audio clip allegedly contained Durk giving instructions about vehicles, money, and getaway protocols. Prosecutors called it the operational backbone of a retaliatory plot. The defense immediately objected, arguing that the audio was taken out of context, that it didn't directly reference any specific act of violence, and that street talk is often exaggerated for effect. But the prosecution's angle was clear. They wanted the jury to see Durk not as a rapper caught in bad company, but as the director of the violence. Then, something happened that nobody saw coming. A witness was brought in under heavy security rumored to be PW1, the cooperating insider mentioned earlier. The courtroom went dead silent. This person's identity was partially shielded, but whispers spread like wildfire. Some said it was a distant cousin. Others claimed it was someone who'd been around OTF since before the fame. Whoever it was, the fact that they were testifying for the prosecution hit like a bomb. According to leaked summaries, PW1 testified about the atmosphere inside OTF in the months after King Von's death. They described meetings, group chats, and heated conversations where frustrations grew over O Block's lack of response. Durk, they claimed, felt disrespected that people weren't moving the way Von would have wanted. The witness described a moment where Durk allegedly slammed his phone down and said, "If they won't move, we'll make them move." The witness also corroborated the meaning of the green light message, explaining how coded emojis were standard among certain members to avoid overt language. According to POW1, everyone in that chat knew exactly what the message meant. Retaliatory action against specific O Block members deemed inactive in the slide for Von campaign. The defense tried to paint PW1 as unreliable, a bitter ex-associate trying to save themselves. They pressed hard on cross-examination, suggesting the witness had cut deals to reduce their own charges. But prosecutors countered by aligning POW1's testimony with digital records, timestamps, messages, surveillance footage. Piece by piece, they were building a story that prosecutors framed as betrayal, conspiracy, and family implosion. Outside, the effect was immediate. The term green light plot began trending globally. News outlets from Chicago to New York were picking up the story. Rap forums exploded with theories. Some said Durk was being framed by disloyal associates. Others claimed this was the inevitable result of years of coded messaging and unchecked retaliation. Meanwhile, Durk's family dynamics were reportedly unraveling behind the scenes. According to a source close to the family, certain relatives were distancing themselves publicly to avoid legal heat, while others were pressuring Durk to keep quiet and keep loyal. There were whispers of closed-door confrontations, of family members accusing each other of talking to the feds. One source claimed that during a private family meeting at a relative's house, Durk confronted someone he suspected of leaking information. "You know what you did," he allegedly told them, his voice low but cold. The person denied everything, swearing they hadn't flipped, but others present described the atmosphere as tense, like something was going to break. Adding another twist, prosecutors dropped a revelation that shook everyone. They alleged that Durk's green light wasn't just about O-block infighting. They claimed it extended to external rivals who specifically mentioning the infamous Quando Rondo incident in Georgia. According to the government, this was part of a coordinated campaign that tied multiple violent plots together under one umbrella. Court filings outlined how group chats, cash transactions, and travel records showed a pattern: vehicles being purchased, people moving across state lines, and coded conversations aligning with real-world shootings. One federal agent testified, "What we're showing here isn't a series of isolated acts. It's a command structure." At that point, Durk's legal team went into damage control. They argued that rap lyrics, emojis, and casual group chats were being twisted into a criminal narrative. They pointed out that Durk was a target precisely because of his fame, that prosecutors wanted a headline conviction. But privately, even members of Durk's camp were shaken. The evidence wasn't just hearsay anymore. It was texts, audios, and insiders flipping. Bloggers had a field day. One popular commentator said during a live stream, "Bro, this ain't just street beef. This is Game of Thrones with iMessages. Family betrayal, green light plots, federal witnesses. This is the kind of case they make documentaries about." And that wasn't an exaggeration. Streaming platforms were already circling, waiting for the trial to unfold fully before greenlighting docuseries. One producer was quoted saying, "The Durk case has everything: music, power, loyalty, betrayal, murder plots. It's America's obsession with celebrity crime, but real." Back in court, the prosecution dropped another surprise. They revealed that PW1 wasn't the only insider. There was potentially a second cooperator, someone described as having intimate knowledge of family conversations. This second figure hadn't testified yet, but their existence alone sent shockwaves through Durk's supporters. Fans began dissecting Durk's inner circle like detectives. Old photos were pulled up, cross-referenced with rumors. People speculated about who might have flipped. Every post, every like, every sudden disappearance from social media became evidence in the court of public opinion. Meanwhile, rival rappers and crews watched silently, some smirking from afar. One cryptic post from an opposing camp read, "The loudest ones always fall from the inside." It was seen by millions. The legal battle was turning into a narrative war. And Durk was fighting on two fronts: inside the courtroom against the prosecution's mountain of evidence, and outside in the culture, where perception often matters as much as facts. And then came the biggest emotional blow yet. During one tense moment in court, Durk locked eyes with someone sitting quietly in the gallery, a relative who hadn't spoken publicly since the case began. According to eyewitnesses, the two held eye contact for a long moment. Durk's expression shifted from confusion to anger to something colder. He looked betrayed, one observer said. Insiders later claimed this relative may have been working with federal agents to corroborate certain timeline details. Whether that's true or not, the look said everything. This wasn't just a legal case anymore. It was a war within the bloodline. And through it all, Durk remained publicly silent. No statements, no posts, no interviews. Just a cold stare in the courtroom, surrounded by lawyers' whispers and ghosts of loyalty that might never come back. But if people thought the prosecution had already played all their cards, they were wrong. More was coming. Evidence was still sealed. Testimonies were still being prepared. The green light plot was only the beginning of what they claimed was a sprawling criminal narrative, with Lil Durk at its center as the trial moved deeper. The tension that had already gripped both the courtroom and the culture outside began to feel suffocating. You could sense it in the way journalists whispered before testimony, in the way bloggers camped outside like they were covering a presidential scandal, and in the way even loyal fans started to question everything they thought. They knew about Lil Durk. This was no longer just a rapper in court story. This was becoming one of the most shocking legal dramas in modern hip-hop history. The prosecution began the next phase of their case with what they called the connective tissue, the part that would link Durk not just to the group chat and green light messages, but to actual movements on the ground. They started introducing travel records, bank statements, and testimony from federal investigators who had been building this case for years. One agent testified that Durk's financial records showed a series of cash withdrawals, sometimes $10,000 to $20,000 at a time, coinciding with key events in the timeline. Those withdrawals, they alleged, were funneled through intermediaries connected to known OTF, associates involved in retaliatory actions. They also brought in surveillance stills from toll booths and gas stations, showing specific cars traveling between Chicago and Georgia during the exact windows of some violent incidents. The cars were registered to third parties, but prosecutors argued the trail led back to Durk's circle. One investigator described it as a well-coordinated operation hiding under layers of loyalty and coded language. Then came perhaps the most shocking revelation so far. The prosecution played a portion of a secret recording audio that hadn't been leaked, hadn't been teased, and hadn't been rumored. In this recording, a male voice that prosecutors identified as Durk was allegedly heard saying, "If they ain't sliding, we make 'em irrelevant. Green light means go." The jury froze. Observers in the gallery reportedly gasped. The defense immediately challenged the authenticity, claiming it was edited, spliced, or misattributed. But prosecutors insisted the audio came from an encrypted messaging app on Boom Mo's phone, backed up to cloud storage that investigators accessed through a federal warrant. Meanwhile, Durk's defense team tried to poke holes in everything. They called expert witnesses to explain how slang, emojis, and street talk are often performative, not literal instructions. They brought in digital forensics experts to cast doubt on whether the audio could have been tampered with. But the prosecution didn't need every piece to be flawless. Their strategy was clear: overwhelm the jury with volume, pattern, and insider betrayal. Speaking of betrayal, this is where things got personal. The second cooperating insider, whose existence had been hinted at earlier, was finally revealed. This wasn't some fringe affiliate or distant associate. This was Durk's cousin, someone who had grown up around the same blocks, had been part of the inner family gatherings, and had enjoyed the benefits of Durk's rise to fame. In court documents, they were referred to as CW2. When CW2 entered the courtroom, escorted by marshals, you could cut the air with a knife. Durk didn't even blink. He leaned back, crossed his arms, and locked his gaze on them. The betrayal was now flesh and blood, sitting less than 30 feet away. CW2 testified that after King Von's death, family conversations turned dark. They described late-night calls and meetings where emotions ran high. They alleged that Durk, furious at what he saw as O'Block's lack of action, began privately expressing a desire to send a message. CW2 claimed they were present for a conversation where Durk allegedly told Boom Mo, "They think I'm soft 'cause I made it out. Watch me flip this whole block." The defense fired back, calling CW2 disgruntled opportunist, seeking a plea deal for their own unrelated charges. They painted them as someone who'd been cut off financially and was now taking revenge. But QW2's testimony didn't come alone. Prosecutors matched their claims with chat timestamps, travel logs, and statements from PW1. The puzzle pieces were aligning too cleanly for coincidence. Outside the courthouse, the narrative was spiraling. Major media outlets were running live updates. Hip-hop blogs posted side-by-side timelines, analyzing every emoji and every lyric like detectives. Old clips of Durk interviews where he'd talk about loyalty and never folding were resurfacing with sarcastic captions. And rival rappers? They were suddenly a lot louder. One opposing artist posted a story that simply said, "Told y'all loyalty don't last when the feds knock," with a green light emoji. Another tweeted, "When the courtroom turned into a movie, who's the director?" The entire culture was watching this unfold like it was a live reality show. Except the stakes were real life, freedom, legacy. Meanwhile, whispers spread that Durk's legal team was preparing to make a drastic move, possibly pushing for a mistrial on grounds of prejudicial media exposure and questionable authenticity of key evidence. Whether it would work was another story, but it showed just how dire things were becoming. Back in the courtroom, the prosecution wasn't done. They unveiled what they called the April 2023 package, a compilation of evidence from that critical period. It included the infamous group text where Durk said, "I'm gonna pipe it up," Boonmo's green light emoji response, and location pings from multiple devices heading toward O Block. They even brought in cell tower experts to explain how they triangulated movements of certain phones belonging to Durk's associates. The defense objected to nearly every piece of this, arguing that presence in a chat doesn't equate to participation, and that Durk's words were vague, not commands. But prosecutors were playing a different game. They were stacking storylines. Betrayal from insiders, alleged instructions caught on tape, financial records that matched movements, and now, family members testifying against him. To make matters worse, someone leaked that CW2 had been placed under federal witness protection. That leak, intentional or not, caused an uproar online. Fans began speculating about QW2's identity, posting blurry photos and theorizing who it might be. The situation was spiraling into dangerous territory, with some fans even issuing veiled threats online toward suspected cooperators. The judge issued a stern warning, reminding everyone that this was a federal courtroom, not a circus. But the cultural momentum was too big to stop. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a storm. In one particularly dramatic moment, during cross-examination, CW2 was asked point-blank by the defense, "Did you ever love Durk?" The courtroom fell silent. CW2 hesitated, eyes darting briefly toward Durk. Then they answered quietly, "I did." That single word echoed like a gunshot. Observers said Durk looked away for the first time during their testimony. The emotional weight of family betrayal mixed with federal allegations was unlike anything hip-hop had seen in a long time. Commentators started comparing it to infamous mob cases, saying this wasn't far off a leader. Insiders flipping, coded messages, money trails, and violence. Even members of Durk's extended crew were reportedly panicking behind the scenes. Some went ghost on social media. Others lawyered up. A few even distanced themselves publicly, issuing statements about how they hadn't been around during those events. And just when it seemed like the day couldn't get more chaotic, the prosecution dropped one final bombshell before recess. They hinted that an upcoming witness might tie Durk's alleged green light directive not just to internal retaliations, but to out-of-state murder for hire activity. The phrase multi-state conspiracy was uttered. Gasps filled the courtroom. Durk leaned forward for the first time all day, whispering something to his lawyer. The cameras outside picked up his brief, cold smile as he exited the courtroom under heavy escort. It wasn't relief. It looked like someone who understood the gravity of what was coming next. And make no mistake, what was coming next would shake everything even harder. And now, with everything laid bare, the betrayal, the green light plot, the family cracks, and the courtroom chaos, the question isn't just what happens next in Lil Durk's case. It's whether the entire foundation around him can even survive this storm. Because let's be real, when your blood starts whispering to the feds, when coded messages turn into courtroom evidence, and when every lyric you ever spit comes back like a boomerang, this isn't just a trial anymore. This is a public reckoning. So now, I'm turning it to you. What do you think? Is Lil Durk being set up by insiders trying to save themselves? Or is this the moment where everything he's built starts to collapse from the inside out? Do you believe the family betrayal rumors? Or is this all just a strategy to divide his camp and tighten the prosecution's grip? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is far from over, and your take might just be the one that cracks it wide open. Make sure you like this video if you want me to keep exposing these layers. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single update. And turn on notifications, because when the next wave of evidence hits, you'll want to be the first to know. This case isn't just making headlines, it's rewriting the rules of the rap game. Loyalty and power. Stay locked in, because the next chapter is coming, and trust me, you won't want to blink. You won't want to blink.